You've had a heck of a week. I mean, the
All right, we're gonna do the Zohran. We're gonna do the Zoh momentum. The Zohmentum. Zohran Mamdani, Democratic Party has to be willing to fight for working people. This is ABC News interviewing Zohran Mamdani. Great clips have come out of this already. A lot of aura moments. Okay, a lot of aura, a lot of movement, a lot of motion, a lot of momentum. Zohmentum, as they're calling it.
the election.
I gotta pee.
The candidates you endorsed won down the line, and you knocked off two Democratic incumbent members of Congress. Is this like a unique moment in New York, or is this the beginning of a national movement?
I think we are seeing a that is not just felt by New Yorkers, but frankly by Americans from coast to coast for a new kind of politics, one that puts working people at the heart of it. And I think for far too long, what we as a party have been able to say to New Yorkers who are struggling is simply to explain why they're struggling, not actually offer them a vision for how to make life better. And these candidates, Brad, Daria Lisa, Claire, they ran campaigns that spoke to working people and that said life in the nation's most expensive city need not be this way any longer. And I can't wait to have them as partners in D.C. in that work.
So do you see yourself endorsing candidates outside of New York, or?
You know, for now, my focus is on this incredible slate of 3 congressional candidates, as you said, the 5 candidates I endorsed who ran and won, who are all going to be heading to Albany in the state legislature. But I do think, as you said, it's not just New York City where working people are asking themselves, why can't I afford my rent? Why can't I afford my groceries? Why can't I find enough money in my pocket for childcare, no matter how hard I work? And I'm so excited that these incredible soon-to-be Congress members will be helping to lead the fight across the country on making sure that working people are right there where they should be, which is the heart of the conversation.
The reaction from Democrats has been something. You've had some prominent Democrats dismissive of what happened here. I mean, you had Senator Blumenthal say the effort to nationalize New York is going to fail. What happened in New York will be really irrelevant by the time of the elections in November. Hakeem Jeffries basically said the same thing, saying that this is not indicative of what needs to happen in November. What do you make of that?
You know, I think that when you ask Americans what they're feeling in this moment, amidst reports of an economy that's strengthening, of a stock market that's booming, you will hear an exhaustion at having to try and make ends meet every single day, every single week, every single month, and harder and harder. And so a message of fighting for working people, we don't have to nationalize that message. That is a national message. It's a national crisis. And for far too long, all we've had to say as a party is opposition to the current administration. What do we have to say beyond that? And what these candidates offer is a vision that extends beyond the midterms, it extends beyond 2028. It speaks to what makes so many of us proud to be Democrats. It speaks to a vision that goes back to a New Deal understanding of what working people deserve. And I'll tell you that for too long, that kind of politics, you can only find it in history books, and we need to bring it back to the present day.
And you're hearing some not just dismissive, though. There's resentment. And this is from fellow Democrats who think that this could jeopardize Democratic chances in the fall. I mean, you've got Josh Gottheimer, a Democratic member of Congress, says, many of us believe, as do I, if you're a socialist, you are not a Democrat. And in fact, they put out a manifesto today. I don't know, have you seen this thing?
Sounds pretty socialist to me.
It's not a communist manifesto.
That's revisionist. It's not bad to write manifestos. Zohran. You liberal. Don't use socialism as a pejorative, even if it's to make a singer.
So it's a moderate manifesto saying we are capitalist, not socialist. We believe.
What about October 11, buddy? Asmongold is right about you. October 11. Asmongold is right about you. You're an Asmongold fan that says I'm an anti-Semite? Dude, why are there so many Asmongold fans that literally will be like, he has no Asmongold logs? Yeah. I don't know what this guy is doing, but it's always funny. It's always funny when like people will come in here and be like, you know who's not an anti-Semite? Asmongold. Asmongold openly says he is a funnel for Nick Fuentes, okay? Asmongold has called Nick Fuentes' statements about the Holocaust denial based. It's so strange whenever people, my man's like October 11, never forget. Yeah, Asmongold said your people are an inferior culture that has genocide baked into their identity, and you deserve to be genocided. Okay? I mean, I don't know what frequency you're on, buddy, but openly revealing that you're an Asmongold fan while simultaneously saying you're a Palestinian is hilarious. That is an Asmongold and Pegaslav viewer. I don't understand how people can just like lose sight of reality about their own people. And he's right about Hamas and Muslims in Gaza supporting the genocide of Jews. What the dude, you have lost your way, man. No wonder your family doesn't talk to you anymore. Jesus Christ. Nobody wants the genocide of Jews, chatter. Well, you know, Nick Fuentes might, but you know, that's a separate thing.
In a growing, fair, and competitive economy, entrepreneurship, ownership. I mean, this is a direct
Palestinian guy who comes in here to be like, my whole family loves you, and that's why I hate you. Why won't they love me instead? I don't know. Maybe because you genuinely believe that like all Muslims in Gaza want to genocide the Jews, and a litany of other insane statements like that justify Israel's genocide, weirdly enough, of your own people. Perhaps that's the reason. Read a book, man. Read Rashid Khalidi, okay? Read 100 Years in Palestine. Read Ilan Pape, 10 Myths. Read something, please. Please stop watching YouTubers, myself included. Go outside, you know, enjoy the world. Pick up a book, okay? In the name of Allah, read. He must be like a Christian Palestinian saying Muslims in Gaza want genocide. It doesn't matter. If you, Christian Palestinians wouldn't also say that either. Like Ihab Hassan is anti-Hamas. He would never turn around and say all Muslims in Gaza want to genocide the Jews or whatever. He would never say that.
response. They've made it clear to what you did here on Tuesday.
Well, I mean, you know, that's great, but what's a party if not its voters? And I'm proud to sit in front of you as the mayor of our city, having received more than 1 million votes, a little less than a year ago. And when we're talking about these incredible congressional candidates, they won their races, and they won their races with a vision of what politics should be, and one that actually speaks to working people. And for a lot of people who ask themselves, what does democratic socialism mean? And you can tell them the answer at a theoretical level. It's the choice to extend democracy from the ballot box the rest of their lives. But in terms of what it means over these last 7 months, we've seen a city with...
Dude, that's another incredible line. What is a party if not its voters is an incredible line, because it directly cuts away at this this weird propaganda that like right-wing Democrats are trying to present. I tweeted about this earlier today. I said, right-wing Dems yell at us not to vote third party every 4 years. We run leftist and Dem primaries. Socialists win Democratic primaries because voters realize they're actually invested in advancing the agenda right-wing Democrats simply lie about. And then right-wing Democrats demand socialists create third party. Rinse and repeat. Who does a political party belong to if not the voters is such a great answer. He's on a generational run. Oddly, it empowers him that he can't run for president. And I hope Republicans are dumb enough to try to make him the face of the Democrats. Yeah. Because, like, there's got to be a reason why the Democratic Party's voters are going out and voting for Democratic Socialists, right? They're the ones who are voting. One must ask the question why they're voting for Democratic Socialists. Like, you can't, the New York one is also really interesting because it's a closed primary system. And in a closed primary, only Democratic voters are voting. Okay? So if in a closed primary system, only lifelong Democrats are going out and voting, people who are registered to vote for the Democrats are going out and voting for the Democrats, that means these are your voters. And obviously, right-wing Democrats can't criticize the voters, even though they really want to. So they try to do this disciplining operation against the Democratic Socialist electeds. They try to do this disciplining operation against spokespeople for this movement, myself included. What they don't like is that voters want this, okay? But they can't openly say that. They can't openly be like, this is what the voters want and we hate it. Why don't you shut the fuck up and just vote for us? They can't say that because that would look insane. But that's basically what they're trying to say. And the reason as to why there's appetite for this kind of politics from the Democratic Party is because the Democratic Party, by and large, advances this agenda even if they're not sincerely on board with it. And you don't hear Democratic socialists turn around and be like, why are you guys lying? Why don't you run? Why don't you just abandon the Democratic Party and become Republicans because you are, right? You guys run on wanting to you guys always run on socialist or socialist adjacent policies, but then you never implement it. And the voters end up asking why you don't implement these policies, right? The reality of the matter is a lot of these right-wing Democrats are just Republicans that are ashamed, okay? They're ashamed of the moniker. That is the reason why there's this massive friction now. That friction does not exist between Democratic, like right-wing centrist Democratic electeds and Democratic socialist electeds. That friction is actually right-wing centrist Democratic electeds and the base of support, the voters. No one is going out and voting in the polls because they're like, I love, the lighter version, the more moderate version of the racist policies that the Republicans are advancing, and that's why I'm voting for the Democrats. They vote against Republicans, or they vote because they genuinely believe that the Democrats are going to advance these causes that they're supposedly claiming that they're going to advance. No one is voting for a corporate stooge because they love the corporate-backed stooges in the Democratic Party. No Democrat is voting because they're like, I want moderate Democrats to be, in support of Israel permanently. There's an avenue for that. There's a route for that, right? And that route is the Republican Party. If you're antagonistic to the existence of immigrants on American soil, one of the most diverse countries on the planet, there's a route for that. There's a party for you. It's called the Republican Party. Democrats are not the party that says, we are not a nation of immigrants. We're not a nation of strangers. We have to do away with this notion. We are going to be the reasonable anti-immigrant party. No one is voting for that. At most, people are plugging their noses and voting against the Republican fascism. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, let's get back to Zohran.
Democratic socialist principles at the heart of it within our administration. And what we've delivered has been record lows when it comes to murders and shootings.
So is it pragmatic democratic socialism?
I think democratic socialism at the heart is pragmatic, because if we cannot deliver for working people, then what is this for? I'm not interested in writing a manifesto or frankly in reading one. I'm interested in delivering, and that's exactly what we've been showing.
But they're saying...
He said, put down the theory, it's time for praxis. Zohran Mamdani calls out theory nerds. Zohran Mamdani calls out theory nerds, says it's time to put the pen and paper down and get to work. Roll up your sleeves. It's praxis time. I'm about delivering results, he says.
That if you're a socialist, you're not a Democrat. I mean, is there room in the party for both of these views?
Yes, here I am. Here are so many more. And I think what makes our party a beautiful party is the fact that it's a big tent, that we have
But you've also said it has to be a party with a spine, with a backbone.
Yes,
so
even a tent has to stay up.
Yes, so, does it have to stand firmly for these ideas that you're talking about that others are calling dangerous?
I think it has to stand for working people. And I think it has to be willing to fight for working people. And I think that there are some who are offended by the prospect of a party that knows who it fights for and goes every day to work for that. Because what we've seen over many years is a willingness to not only explain away the status quo, but frankly even to look to benefit from the status quo. And that's not what working people are looking for from our party.
Yeah, Zohran said the philosophers of the world have heretofore only analyzed the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. That's what Zohran Mamdani said. No one else, actually. Zohran Mamdani invented that right there.
As New Yorkers were going to vote, you said something interesting. You said the race for 2028 starts now, the presidential race.
Bars.
What did you mean by that?
Well, a lot of pundits asked me about this race and what it means and how to think about it. And at the core of Tuesday's results was a message from Democratic voters across the largest city in the United States of America about the kind of politics they want to see. And we know that we oppose the cruelty of the federal administration. What is it that we stand for beyond that?
So you can't just be anti-Trump, obviously.
You got to have something you are not.
I do not think he likes Marx, though. Seems like a social democrat. It's actually interesting that I've never talked to Zohran, even in private, about his ideological tendency. And certainly not in public. But I don't. I mean, he's quoted Gramsci and stuff like that. Obviously, I do believe that he is a socialist. You would have to go through his older videos and stuff like that at DSA conferences to pick up on what he is. Word on the street is he's a trot. I hope not. That would be devastating. If I recall, he was part of Bread and Roses in DSA. But yeah, some of his older videos, like some of his older speeches from conferences and whatnot, obviously were far more radical. And that leads me to believe that he definitely is, he's definitely well read. I don't think he's described himself a little bit of SMC and BNR. Maybe he's a Posadist. Yeah, dude, he's a Posadist. What's wrong with trots? I mean, in this day and age, I feel like they've abandoned some of their previous counter-revolutionary tendencies, but a lot of trots are so aggressively anti-USSR, even if Trotsky himself was not all the way to the bitter end. His writing. His writing on Stalin did get used quite frequently by not only the CIA but a lot of capitalist anti-communist. Like his writing is the backbone of anti-communist thought in the Western world. It's just true, and I feel like the trot tendency is almost, although he was, fairly pragmatic and obviously a profoundly important part of the revolution initially, a lot of trots will always behave as though this is like a revolution betrayed, and that it's too much of a splinter. That there was this idealism, there was this idealistic USSR. If only Trotsky had won and not Stalin, and then you can always point out to the excesses of the USSR and say, no, there's this like pure socialism that exists out there. There's this pure socialism that exists out there that has just never been achieved, and the USSR actually betrayed the revolution, and Stalin specifically betrayed the revolution, and the USSR became like a degenerative worker state that wasn't like real socialism. And I think that I think that ultimately that laid the foundation of a lot of anti-communist thought in the Western world. So some of the trots will take hardline stances that is borderline anti-communist, anti-socialist when it comes to actually existing socialism or actually existing socialist states, or rather attempts at creating a transitional socialist state.
Not just willing to stand up for, but that you're also willing to explain how this is relevant to working people. And I think this just comes back to the fact that I'm leading a city that's the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. I could end a sentence there and say that life is great for 8.5 million people, but it's also a city where 1 in 4 are living in poverty. And for far too many Americans, those contradictions have become their day-to-day life. And we need a party that's able to recognize the strengths of this economy and understand that it hasn't reached enough people.
Now, you know, there's been a lot of attention. One of the candidates you supported who won, who knocked off an incumbent Democrat, is Darlisa Villa-Chalier. She said some very
You know, critiques of actually existing socialism isn't exclusive to Trots, right? Adorno and Hork are not Trots, nor is Angela Davis. Yes. Angela Davis is an anarchist. Of course. I know. There are plenty of critiques of actually existing socialism. Ultimately, none of these states were allowed to fully go through this transition without unbelievable interventions from the outside. Anyway, all of these distinctions are stupid. I think. I don't care. I don't give a shit. See, there is no AES because it's supposed to be international.
controversial things, including calling for the abolition of prisons. Couldn't say whether or not somebody who had committed murder should be in prison. Called for open borders against all deportations, including those of violent criminals. Are those positions that the Democratic Party could win on nationally?
I think what the Democratic Party can win on nationally is a focus on working people. And I think that what I saw from Darlisa when I would walk the streets of her district was a focus on what she describes as a politics of life. She would talk about how we have to invest in babies, not bombs. She's now going to represent what is one of the poorest districts in the United States of America. And what people in that district are exhausted by is a politics that has justified the spending of tens of billions of dollars in killing civilians overseas while working people are struggling just to do the basics.
But how does abolishing prisons or having open borders fit into that? I mean,
Miyavlamak, you're literally Turkish. You're literally Turkish. You're literally Turkish. Okay? Türksün. Worry about Erdogan. Don't want to hear from you right now. Okay? Miyavlamaya devam et amına koyayım. Yanlışsın sen de. İyi peki amına koyayım. Sen ne yapıyorsun? Getirdin mi komünizmi Türkiye'ye? Yakın mısın? Nasıl bir koalisyon kurdunuz abi? Ha? Yaptınız mı? Nerede? Sende var mı komünizm batın? Siz getiriyorsunuz ya demokratlarla çalışarak. Okey, ikimiz de getirmiyoruz o zaman. Ne güzel.
see how those are ideas that a lot of your Democrats that are warning about what happened here say are toxic. Most of America won't go along with it. Are bad ideas. They're dangerous ideas.
I think what the focus of her race was, what the focus of her candidacy was about the struggle that working people are facing. And I think that we can have disagreements on policy positions. What we have to agree on is what are we fighting for and who are we fighting for? She showed that in her race, and I think that many people will come to appreciate that in her leadership to come.
So we can disagree on something as basic as whether or not there should be prisons?
That's
not your position.
There are prisons,
yes.
And what we're also showing in this city is that safety is not something that's up for debate. It's something that we're actually delivering on. And I'm proud to be the mayor of a city that currently has the lowest recorded number of murders and shootings in recorded history in New York City.
So there was also a take, it's not just Democrats, you've probably heard what President Trump had to say about you and about the candidates you supported, and he warned that if socialists win, and he calls you communists, but you will start living.
That's a decent answer. I think mine is better. I think that her worldview or the goals that she wants to move in the direction of center empathy, and albeit they're unachievable in this current day, are still probably closer to the average person's perspective than those who are in Congress who believe that, you know, Israel is a great force for, is a wonderful American ally, or those who are in Congress who believe that we should maintain private prisons. You know? Like, focusing on rehabilitation to reduce recidivism in this country, as many countries already have, like Norway, is probably a far more equitable and just answer to this issue, and creates a long-standing solution. Too wordy gang, leave mayoring to Big Z. Oh my God. Oh my God. I know. That's why he's the mayor, and I'm a streamer. I know. I mean, he did a far better job on dealing with this. He did a far better job in dealing with this than I think AOC even did as well. The average American or even anyone over the age of 25 thinks they should do El Salvador in their own countries. I'm sorry. No, I know. There are a lot of insanely reactionary opinions when it comes to crime and punishment. It's one of the... I don't understand tankies. I'm new to this. Help me. What? Tankies? God, I hate this term so much. Ay. Dude, what are we talking about, dude? Campist, tanky... These terminologies don't exist anymore and should not exist anymore because there is no Cold War anymore. Okay? There is no camp to be a part of. You're either a part of the imperial hegemonic superpower or you think other countries in the periphery should be given room to breathe. That's it. So if you are someone who thinks maybe we should stop murdering brown people in the global south, you're automatically classified as a tanky. It's just an online LARP. We have to stop. We have to do away with this online LARP. Okay? Campist only mattered as a statement. By the way, shout out to the trots. Okay, once again. Campus only matters as a terminology if there are camps that you can be a part of. And the trot position is supposed to be no camps. Okay? Not USSR, not American imperialism. We're a secret third thing. Okay? Where is it? Yeah, the secret third thing? CIA. Anyway, it's very stupid to utilize terminology that like British lifestyleists invented during the suppression of the Hungarian counter-revolution or during the Hungarian Revolution, depending on your ideology there, that the USSR used brutal techniques of utilizing their tanks to squash dissent in Hungary. Okay? This is not a thing that exists in the world right now. What is the militant force that is carrying the torch of communism around the globe? China's not doing that. That's a crazy take, bruh. Sorry. You're saying campism doesn't exist today? I'm just saying that, like, campism, okay, just like the term tanky, just like the term campus, is something that people misunderstand. It's a term that people misunderstand and misuse and abuse over and over again. They hit that button. It's a thought-terminating cliche. It's a thought-terminating term. And it's really f***ing annoying because people that like misunderstand where these terms come from and misattribute these terms to whatever their political opposition is. It's just a way to say terrorist, right? It's just a more intellectualized version of saying terrorism. You're a terrorist. You're supporting terrorists. Terrorist this, terrorist that. That's all this is. It's just like an annoying liberal version of literally saying that, okay? Which many liberals do also just straight up call me a fucking terrorist. Anyway, campism has existed though, right? Yes, it has, but what camp exists? You either are pro-NATO Atlanticism, pro-American imperialism, or what? What is the other unified bloc? Is it Russia and North Korea? Is that it? It's barely China. Like, what is the self-identifying unified bloc against American imperialism? Because, like, if you say it's being pro-China, right? Being in the pro-China camp, then what is the pro-China camp? What has China done as far as like identifying and destroying attempts of further American encroachment and American imperialism? Nothing. Just existing? Is that it? Like, the BRICS is not a real camp. If anything, I guess the Axis of Resistance is one of the only like militant forces that is directly combating American imperialism in one region, right? But that's it. So-called campists do view a somewhat unified bloc of anti-imperialist states, Russia, Iran, China, etc. But what countries fit into that depend on the flavor of the person. Sometimes it excludes like Burkina Faso. Sometimes it includes like Burkina Faso and the West African juntas. Sometimes it excludes China, etc. Exactly. And that is because there's no like real unified anti-imperialist bloc on the planet right now. The only thing that you could closely associate with a unified anti-imperialist movement is unironically the axis of resistance from Ansar Allah, the Hamas-led Palestinian resistance, Hezbollah, and numerous other IRGC aligned forces and the IRGC itself. But that's it. China certainly is not a part of some sort of like resilient anti-imperialist movement in the way that the USSR was, right? Russia certainly is not. I wouldn't say Russia is.
Living in squalor, there'll be no food, no housing, no military, no law and order, there'll be nothing. And he had a few other choice words. By the way, he also said he still likes you. But what do you make of what he? I mean, the Republicans are going to make you the poster child for the Democratic Party.
Let them. We don't have to ask ourselves what life looks like if a socialist wins. I won last November, and over the course of these last 6 months, what we've delivered for working people are the very things we were told were impossible. We've delivered free childcare for 2-year-olds for the first time in New York City history. We've delivered tens of millions of dollars back to tenants who were taken advantage of by bad landlords. We've delivered 165,000 potholes being paved. And we've done all of these things while also delivering the lowest recorded crime in our city's history. That's what it looks like to have democratic socialism. And what you're...
That's it. And this is precisely the reason why I say he is still a movement guy, okay? Regardless of whatever kind of criticism I might have at any given moment, some of which I was wrong on, and I openly will admit that. I'll eat that, and some of the criticisms I still hold and maintain. He is a real one. This is the point, okay? First, you run as a democratic socialist, and you run on issues, okay? You run on how you're going to improve people's lives. Then you win. And then I can point to that and say, look, see? He did it, you can too. Other people pay attention to that. They go, I like winning. I would like to do that as well. Then from that point on, you govern as a democratic socialist. You associate democratic socialism with a clear, definable agenda, with identifiable goals that you want to advance. And you achieve those goals. And then you reinstill confidence in good governance. And you associate good governance with democratic socialism. Okay, and then you expand on that victory. You take the momentum off that victory and you continue organizing and you continue mobilizing and you add more numbers. You add more numbers as others who are also running as democratic socialists, winning as democratic socialists, and governing as democratic socialists. This is how you do it. And this was why he was elected into this position of power, to not only deliver a radical agenda for New Yorkers that places New Yorkers first, that places the working class at the heart of this movement, but will actually deliver on results for the working class. And when other people see that, they go, why can't I have this? I want this as well. It makes good governance an achievable goal, a realistic goal. Okay? That's it. So every victory that he notches is not only a victory for New York City and New Yorkers, but a victory for the movement of democratic socialism. Okay? It proves that a more responsive politics is achievable. It proves that a politics that centers the working class is achievable. It creates confidence in this movement. Okay? It emboldens this movement. It restores confidence in good governance. And it identifies good governance with democratic socialism. This is exactly what he was supposed to do, and he is doing it. Okay? It's fantastic.
Seeing is that New Yorkers experienced this for 6 months and made the decision that they wanted to see more of it on the national stage as well.
Can a democratic socialist get elected president?
I think a democratic socialist can get elected.
What do you mean? Your criticisms are things he didn't campaign around. I mean, there are certain things he didn't openly say that he was campaigning around, like associating good governance with democratic socialism, but he's doing that because that's a part of a broader working class focused movement. Okay, that's number one. Number two, there are certain things he said he was going to do, like disbanding the SRG, keeping the head count for the NYPD the same. Those are promises that he made on the campaign trail that he hasn't followed through on. So, those are still, I think, reasonable critiques to hold Zohran accountable on. But ultimately, inside Hasanabi stream, there are two wolves: positive support for SOC-Dem governance, intense support for highly restrictive and authoritarian theory. How are you going to go from left bashing the lasered focus on SOC-Dem governance? Because because unlike you and unlike many people, I understand where the American people are at. I understand that there is no vanguardism in this country because there's no Marxist-Leninism in this country because there's no class consciousness in this country. Okay? That's it. Because I'm pragmatic. Okay? Because I'm pragmatic. What differentiates that from Mussolini thought? That's awesome. From Mussolini thought, because it's objectively anti-fascist. Jesus Christ. You think Mussolini was basing his theory off of dialectical materialism? Or do you think that he was personally aggrieved by the existing Communist Party in the country? Okay, intense authority with no worker input. What are you talking about? Are you saying Mussolini is a Marxist-Leninist? Is that the argument that you're trying to make? Is that literally the argument you're trying to make? What is this argument? Why is it turning into misunderstanding theory Sunday? Dude, left comms loop around back to any matter of authority is actually the same as fascism, existing fascism. Mussolini, known Communist Party member, of course. I mean, he was. By the way, he literally was. That is true. He was that. But that is before he became what he is known for, which is fascism, which is obviously has nothing to do and is directly antagonistic to communism.
Anywhere across this country for any position, what I think we need to bring is a focus on working people.
And that's the direction that the party should go in.
Yeah, saying Mussolini was communist is like saying Van Jones is a Maoist third worldist. Obviously, theories evolve, right? People change. Opportunists exist of all different sorts. Fascism is the highest stage of opportunism.
And in terms of selecting a candidate for 2028.
I think the direction that the party should go in is how best to fight for working people. I think we need to have a platform and a vision that doesn't sound as if it was cooked up by consultants, but instead one that you would say in response to someone who's asking, why can't I afford my rent? Why can't I afford my groceries? Why can't I afford my childcare? We need to make clear who we stand for, how we're going to stand for them, and that we're actually willing to fight for them when the going gets tough.
Obviously, Israel was a big issue in these races. Not the only issue, but a big issue. Is there room in the Democratic Party for candidates, officials who support Israel, not just support Israel, but support military aid for Israel? This was a huge issue for you.
Well, I think what we've seen is that the time for us as elected officials to pronounce what the party should be is one that should come to an end, and we should let Democratic voters themselves take the lead. And we've seen on Tuesday evening, we saw Democrats turn out in districts across the city to make clear that they were tired of tens of billions of dollars being spent in our taxpayer dollars to violate international law, to kill thousands of civilians. And you and I know that right now the way that Palestine is described is as if there is a ceasefire. That's the language that's typically used. Yeah. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in that ceasefire. And what New Yorkers want to see is a politics of conscience, a politics of clarity, a politics of conviction. And to follow international law, to believe in the humanity of all people, it shouldn't be a journey too far. And I think that our party needs to hear what Democrats are telling it.
Democratic Socialists of America now says they no longer favor a two-state solution. Is that the way you see it as well?
Dude, it's so funny to think that, I mean, I hope all the DSA cadres in the chat are aware of what's about to take place, because the next national convention is not only going to be featured on the Hasanabi broadcast, It's going to be featured on CNN, NBC, ABC, ZBS, CNN, Fox News. It's already being featured, but it is really funny to think that like last year's national convention was what? Like I was there. Who else was really there? Who like what major media outlet actually covered it? Like imagine parsing through the decision-making process as to why a single solitary secular state was voted against at the DSA National Convention as it was done last year. It's so funny. You must be the smartest dumb guy I know. Wait, what? I don't know what you're saying. So, if I recall correctly, the DSA voted against that. And then a lot of the outsiders, a lot of the ultras were very mad about that. And they were, but the decision for why they voted against it was because they said, look, this should be up to the Palestinians. We shouldn't be enforcing secularity on the Palestinians, which I think is whatever. It doesn't matter. We're fucking Americans. You know what I mean? Just like I understand where it's coming from. The only difference between you and Mussolini is that he reached the conclusion that pandering to reactionary populism. Okay. Theory is when worker councils. Oh my God. Theory is when worker councils are dissolved. Didn't say Mussolini was a communist though. Workers' democracy is literally an essential part of Marx and Lenin. The only difference between you and Mussolini is that he reached the conclusion that pandering to reactionary populism is a much easier way to come to power than mass electoral politics. Your New Deal ideation is the same politics as Italian fascism. Both FDR and Mussolini agreed on this. Oh my God. Chatters, I need you to live in 2026. In many ways, your assessment is not dissimilar to the people on the left that you oppose the most. Judging by this take, I suspect, I mean, actually, I don't know. You might be a ML. But judging by this take, this is no different than saying that the only way to achieve socialism is literally the exact same methods that were deployed by the Bolsheviks, okay, in 2026, trying to compare the conditions, the material conditions of an agrarian peasant society like Tsarist Russia to 2026 industrially developed United States of America. Okay? It's pure. Name a book that disproves this law. Like, actually back up what you're saying other than trust me, bro. This is not, first of all, even the Leninist interpretation somewhat went against the Marxist assessment that was that industrialized nations with a labor force would probably be the real implementation of socialism, which demonstrably did not work. Okay? It didn't. The two most successful, internationally renowned communist revolutions took place in largely peasant societies. Okay? Agrarian USSR or Tsarist Russia and Mao in China. Okay? These were peasant-backed revolutions. I look back and yeah, the OSS lost at the National Convention. Yes, it did. One state solution that is secular lost at the National Convention. You have to rigorously interpret the current existing material conditions and apply theory to those current existing material conditions in a country that is at the heart of empire like the United States of America. A country that is at the heart of imperialism like the United States of America, that is the domineering force, the defender, the main defender of international capitalism, with a workforce that does not resemble the peasant force at all, with advanced industry that was so advanced that they moved beyond it. They moved to finance capitalism, which has now eviscerated what existed of like the industrial base of the industrial labor class, and their industrial labor force is going to have a dramatically different approach. Okay? This is uncharted waters. It's untested theories. We're all working through it right now. Do you understand? You either want to adopt a dogmatic approach. You either want to apply a dogmatic approach that you or some people either want to apply a dogmatic approach to actual existing socialism that has worked, and then apply this one-size-fits-all mentality to a country that is dramatically different than any other country where socialism has ever been implemented or been tried or has been attempted. Okay, or you have a pure idealistic framework that your pure idealistic framework that you're approaching this issue with has never even existed around the planet. The real socialism hasn't been tried mentality. Rather, the strategies that you want to employ are the ones that are equally as old as the ones you view as outdated, and thus risk screwing any attempt to build a larger movement and getting it subsumed into mainstream bourgeois politics. What do you suggest? Let's start there.
Well, the idea of two states, Palestinian, Jewish state side by side living in peace.
The way I see it is equal rights for all people. And I think that that's the truth for Israel. It's the truth for any country in the world. And frankly, as we're coming up close to the 250th anniversary of our nation, one of the things that makes me proudest to be an American is the belief that equal rights are at the bedrock of our notion of what it means to be an American.
And the idea of a Jewish state, Israel is a Jewish state, that's in the charter. That's the way it is now. Do you support that?
I've said time and again that I support the state of Israel as a state with equal rights. I believe that any state that preferences...
But as a Jewish state is the question.
I think any state that privileges one religion over the other is one that I can't tell you I support, whether it be Israel or Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. And
good answer. This is perfectly within the confines of the liberal framework. A lot of people will say this is normalizing, he's a Zionist or whatever. It's not true. Okay? It's not. Israel as it currently exists is an ethno-state project, and that is completely antithetical to liberal humanitarian values. So it's good to utilize that framework because it's an inherent contradiction, okay? It's contradictory to everything that liberals have learned, everything that self-identifying liberals have learned about the world and about how the world should exist, okay? That's it. It's a great way to say it's an ethno-state. I don't think ethno-states should exist. No, it's a great answer. Would love if he leaned into New York City's specific multiculturalism and how that's his vision for America, not ethno-supremacy. Yes, Cinemarxism. I don't normally say this, but you are correct on this. And this is something that I think I should probably deploy as well more frequently, making that comparison between an ethno-state project in Israel under the banner of Judaism, falsely claiming that this is a goal, a project that all Jews support, is not dissimilar to our own version of ethnic supremacy that exists, that we have a dark history of championing at times, right? White supremacy. When someone comes out and says, we need Christian nationalism, America is a Christian nation state, everybody understands what that person is saying. Everybody understands that that is actually antithetical to the American values of building a robust, multicultural, diverse society, right? So why is it that we place Israel in its own special category? It's ridiculous.
And a lot of that comes back to a fundamental belief that we should all be considered equal no matter what our faith is.
How big a problem, you've said it's rising, is anti-Semitism in this city?
We've seen anti-Semitism rise in this city. We've seen the fact that Jewish New Yorkers comprise a minority of our city's population and yet continue to...
Zohran is employing a dog whistle. We recognize when others do that. I mean, even dog whistling in and of itself, I think, implies that like his ultimate moral position is wrong, right? And like you have to shelter, you have to hide your moral position. I don't think, I wouldn't... I know what you're saying. I mean, he is in some ways liberalizing his anti-Zionism, making it more palatable, right? Making it more palatable. That's what he's doing. Because he is definitely an anti-Zionist, as am I, but I think he is softening his approach, or rather making his approach more palatable to the way that liberals can understand. And I think it's good. He's doing a great job with this. I don't think dog whistle is a morally charged term. He's signaling to his base he means what he means while framing it in liberal terms that don't explicitly say no. An Israel with equal rights is not Israel as it currently exists. He's saying no without saying no when they ask him, does Israel have a right to exist? Ultimately, the morality behind his sentiment has not changed. Ultimately, the goal has not changed at all, right? It's a good thing to do. It's pushing the boundaries as much as an elected representative can, because when you're an elected representative, obviously you have significant limitations in what you can and can't say. You can't be ridiculous. You can't be silly. You can't engage in like the agitative propaganda that I engage in, right? Agitprop of the sort that I deal with is very clearly looking at what is right at the edges of the confines of permissible speech and then hoping to expand it towards the left, right? Pulling by force liberals or self-identifying liberals into understanding the world from our perspective. And that is the reason why I do the thing where I say, like, I'd vote for Hamas over Israel 1,000 times over. Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. I'm a harm reduction voter. Things like that I say are they're not wrong, right? But it's also by design. I'm like deliberately trying to get liberals to understand that between these two forces, like one side is closer to being on the righteous side than the other. A lot of liberals obviously have a significant hang up, right? When they're like, they've never thought about like why Palestinians resist. They understand that Palestinians are being destroyed, dominated, killed, murdered, but anything that moves beyond the perfect victimhood narrative, they can't cope with. They can't deal with. They're like, what do you mean they're fighting back? That's unacceptable. So what's the alternative? That they should just, quietly take it, quietly eat it, just be killed? Israel has been an aggressor since even before 1948, when Israel was invented, right? So the notion that people are not going to harbor resentment towards this initiative that is exterminating them, that's actually ethnically cleansing them by through militancy from their ancestral homelands. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. Of course, people are going to fight back. So the question I always try to get people to arrive at is like, okay, so you say free Palestine, you say you're for a free Palestine, but you don't like the people that are shepherding the current formation of the Palestinian resistance. You don't like the people that are in charge. Okay, so let's work through that. What are some of the reasons why you don't like them? You go, okay, October 7. I say, yes, October 7 had numerous atrocities and even war crimes. Having said that, however, do you feel like the evolution of the Palestinian resistance got there because these guys are barbaric, racist monsters or Jew haters in the way that it's been presented? Or do you think this is a consequence of 80 years of apartheid and occupation and ritualistic humiliation of the Palestinians, death and destruction, controlling their diet? You can't put yourself in the shoes of the Palestinian population. Yeah, I agree, and I don't hear Zohran saying this. Yes, because he's an elected representative in New York City. And his primary purpose here is to govern and govern well. Okay? And unfortunately, he's made a different calculation than someone like myself at this point, where he recognizes that if he came out and said those things, then the conversation would no longer be about, how there's the lowest murder rate that New York City has ever seen in its entire history. The conversation would be about how Zohran Mamdani is a Muslim communist radical who wants to do 9/11s every day in New York City. There's always a give and take and a push and pull, okay? We all occupy different lanes. And a part of his goals as a movement leader is to not only govern well, but to show the rest of the country that he is governing well as a democratic socialist. And in order for him to show the rest of the country that he's governing well as a democratic socialist, he can't constantly get bogged down on distinctions between or on bastardizations of his message. And they would absolutely aggressively prosecute him in the same way that they are me if he were to turn around and be like, the Palestinian resistance is a legal right to resist against Israeli occupation. I think there will come a time. I think that eventually there will come a time where everyone will have been against this, right? Where everyone will say, yes, there were atrocities that took place in the hands of the Palestinian resistance, but this was a direct byproduct of 80 years or 90 years of occupation. Whenever people inevitably arrive at this conclusion, they will. But I'm not going to say that he's doing a bad job overall, because I do understand where he's coming from. Even if this attitude actually sometimes puts him at odds with what I'm doing.
Constitute a majority of the hate crimes that have been pervaded in this city. And that's something that's unacceptable. It's something that we will never come to see as if it is a part of life. It's something that has to be fought and rooted out of every one of the 5 boroughs.
What did you think when Dan Goldman, that coffee shop in Brooklyn, said that they wouldn't serve him because of his support for Israel? You have a problem with, the idea of, of a establishment like that saying they're not going to serve somebody if they support Israel?
I've said that I have political disagreements with Congressmember Goldman. I do believe that that's a response that goes beyond that.
So that's not the right kind of thing.
No, I think it's much better to keep that critique in the way that we've done it.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. I got to ask you. I noticed that you're turning 35 soon, right?
In a few months, yes.
So you now hit one of the constitutional requirements to run for president. But there's another one that says you have to be a natural-born citizen. You were not born here.
Yes.
But do you think that's something that should be changed in the Constitution? It would take an amendment, but do you think that we should change that?
No.
No?
I think the Constitution looks good the way it is.
Just the way it is.
Just the way it is. I'm very excited to focus on New York City. But thank you for reminding me of my upcoming
35
mortality.
years old. 35 years old. All right.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Real pleasure.